The new exciting sport of jetboarding is taking over the world, and today we have a pleasure to meet a talented British inventor, Gilo Cardozo, creator of Mako Slingshot Jetboard and a powered paraglider called Parajet, to talk more about what's coming up for the new season from Mako Boardsports.
Hi Gilo, welcome back to our show. It's a big pleasure for me to see you again. Last time we met 4 years ago, back in 2017 in Spain. So let me know how Gilo Industries are doing all these years.
So we've had a real adventure over the last couple of years, developing products, testing new kit, developing a new engine, tuning, and etc. We've also developed a new hull for the jetboard, which is super exciting. So we've been very busy, and we've also, as you know, we've got a wider group of companies. So we've got an engine manufacturing business making aircraft engines as well, for helicopters and for fixed-wing aircraft. So we've got a range of stuff going on, and Mako is a really exciting part of that. And we are really, always developing new areas of technology and refining what we've got.
Sounds perfect. I know you've been doing a lot of improvements for your Mako board since I last rode it. So let me know what were the main improvements that you did and what are the improvements for 2021 model.
Okay, so some of the improvements are really focused on reliability in the aggressive conditions that are in saltwater. When people don't look after the product properly, we've seen a lot of things where we can improve on the protection for saltwater corrosion. So this is just starting with the basic stuff in a way, the things that you learn over a period of time when you've got a product out in the real world, things you don't necessarily pick up yourself as a developing company. You find out from feedback from clients as to which things are most reliable, which things aren't. So we've really addressed reliability issues regarding connectors and electronics, the types of cabling we're using rather than copper cabling, we're using stainless steel cabling, for example. And then all the types of sealing against water ingress. So that's the first sort of the base level stuff we do. And it's just improved the general reliability of the product. Then the exciting stuff comes in. So this is where obviously it gets much more interesting. Things like the foot straps are something we've always been working towards. We've got a new generation of foot strap we're going to be releasing this year, which is really down to popular demand. People who've used other products before want to have a more developed, a more evolved foot strap arrangement, foot padding. So we've worked a lot on that, and with people who use jetboards a lot to get their feedback, okay, and to really evolve that to sort of their requirements rather than what we feel. Because in many ways, when we developed the first product, it was about what I really enjoyed using, rather than what all the feedback from all people. We hadn't had time to generate that. So this has been a really interesting experience, getting top riders to use our board. So that's one kind of, in some ways, an easier, less technical development. When you come to the really technical stuff, that's on engine development. And we've been doing a lot of tuning work on the engine to develop a more aggressive acceleration and also a higher top speed. And that's been a really iterative program of dyno testing and then testing on the lake here. We've got a lake on site that we built specifically for jetboarding, as just make that clear. We actually dug our own lake for jetboarding on here. And we've been just pushing all the time incrementally to take this engine and get essentially another 5 horsepower out of it. But also it's not just peak power. So it's not taking it from 12 to 17 horsepower. It's taking it so that it delivers the power more aggressively through the range. So we can accelerate way faster off the mark. And that's to do with changing the piston, and changing, this is work we've been doing with some other guys, some really top-notch engine development guys, to evolve the way the porting works inside the board and also develop a new exhaust system as well.
Sounds good, and I like also small improvements. I think now you have all 3 FCS2 fins, even the center one, and also the different type of gathering tank attachment. Is it right?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and one of the things we've always been really keen on, obviously, is quick release fins, but we've also worked on a wider and a lower profile fin. So, and this is an area of development that I'm really excited about. Actually, we've developed a really low profile fin for doing essentially ramp jumps, so the fin doesn't stick out below the level of the jet drive. So we have two deep side fins. They're very low profile, but very long. Yeah, So they don't stick down into the water very far, but they stretch back across the base of the board, which still gives you really good carving performance, but means they're very low profile. So you can go very shallow conditions, but also do ramp jumps off AstroTurf. So we basically created an AstroTurf jump on our lake, and so we can do jumps off that as well.
Sounds good. And speaking of the shape, I know your shape is very different from your competitors. The nose is very narrow, the fish tail. Tell me more. Some people say it's really good for the waves. What do you think?
Well, I developed this shape, spent a lot of time working on this shape in the beginning before we even launched the product for wave surfing, because I love surfing, and I didn't want to just be going on in flat water. I wanted to be able to carve waves, because that adds a whole new dimension to jetboarding, frankly. So having the V-tail gives you basically an extra long rail, okay? Which means that even without fins, you can still carve on the edge. So it's really a slightly different technique to using a normal board. You actually got to put a bit more weight on the back foot, but once you've established the technique, the carving you can achieve is really on another level. And that works amazingly for coming down the face of the wave and then doing a deep carve at the base of the wave without it also turns rail to rail way quicker. So it actually wants to turn way more than a standard or competitor's jetboards. So that's something you notice straight away when you got on the board. It doesn't feel as stable initially because it wants to turn more easily. And that makes it a more exciting ride. As soon as you get used to that, it's like night and day. You can really, get that basic, and you don't lose the edge at all. It just holds in. You can absolutely lay your body flat out to the water and do hard curves. It's really, really cool.
Sounds exciting. So what are the parameters of the new model? What speeds are you getting and what's the riding time?
So, the riding time on this board at the moment, depending on how hard you're using it, depending how heavy you are, but we're looking at about 40 to 60 minutes on a full tank on this board at the moment. One of the other things we've changed was the fuel tank entry point. We initially designed it so you didn't have to open up the lid to fill it up with fuel, but that came with its own challenges, and actually we changed that and made it so that you now fill up the fuel tank from the inside of the board, and that's made the fuel tank a bit bigger as well. So we've got nearly an extra litre of fuel inside the board now, which is great, because frankly it weighs about an extra kilo in total when you fill it up, but you don't notice it, and it means you've got an extra 20 minutes of riding basically, which is just useful.
Awesome.
We're actually developing a new tank at the moment, which is a flexible tank, so that we can fit even more fuel in for people who want to go extra far. It just fits deeper into the board and basically uses up more space. But also means you can collapse it and take it out of the board and fill it up with another one. So it's something really easy to travel with.
Perfect. And speaking of exciting stuff, I saw last year you made a stunt with gravity suit guys. Tell me how it went.
Well, that was very exciting. Yeah. So interestingly enough, the guy from Gravity, a guy called Richard Browning, brilliant inventor, he developed the technology literally about 15 minutes down the road from where we work here. So he has another facility just down the road from here. So of course we got to know the guy, and he was actually looking to use the jetboards as a way to for his racing over lakes, so that if anything went wrong with any of the jet engines, guys could just jet out there on a jetboard and pick them up, and it was a better way to do it than have to have jet skis, because when they're traveling around the world doing their world tours with the jetpacks, they thought we can take a jetboard with us on an airplane. Wherever we go, we've got basically a guy with a jetboard ready to come and save us. So that was the drive behind doing some testing together. But of course, the reality is he travels up to nearly like 80 miles an hour, and our top speed is about 35 miles an hour. So still, it's something that they're working with. They're learning how to use jetboards at the moment. So we're thinking that it's going to be a good way to go out and save guys should they have a jet engine. Yeah, but also super cool fun to jet around with a guy on such an unbelievable piece of kit.
Cool. And speaking of the flying things, I know you've been also doing Parajet for a long time, and today I looked into it and I was very surprised. I had an impression that it costs like hundreds of thousands, but actually it's cheaper than Mako board.
It's cheaper than a jetboard, absolutely. Well, you've got to imagine when we started the Mako company, it was because we wanted to have personal aircraft and a kind of new generation of personal watercraft. So it was a really easy transition between the two, similar kind of manufacturing techniques, manufacturing engines, is the same type of engine, all that kind of two-stroke engines, right? We knew a lot about two-stroke engines. So, but the interesting thing about it, as you say, is that a complete flying machine, including the wing, the backpack, the harness, the whole lot, is less expensive than a jetboard, actually. And a big part of that is because the hull on a jetboard costs us a lot of money to manufacture. They're expensive to make. A full carbon fiber hull is not a cheap thing to manufacture. So that's where the real cost increases comes. Comparatively speaking, a Parajet backpack aircraft, we have a titanium chassis, which we weld in-house, and we can do that relatively inexpensively compared to a full carbon fiber hull. Yeah.
And how difficult it is to learn Parajet? And is it safe?
It's very safe. We've sold over 7,500 machines around the world so far. We've never had someone have a major accident through any kind of mechanical issue on a Parajet before. So, you know, they're actually statistically safer than riding a motorbike, frankly. So you've got a paraglider wing all the time. The only time when people have, you know, accidents is doing serious aerobatics. So when you're really pushing the boundaries, that's where, you know, obviously things can change. But other than that, you know, it's a very, very safe and very exciting experience. So the two things combined, I felt that Parajet and Mako are two wonderful experiences for people who love the outdoors. And I'd really encourage you to come and have a go, actually. It's easy to learn, doesn't take very long to learn, there's no license required. So a Parajet's a fantastic way to get airborne.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think everybody should check it out, because I think a lot of people don't know about this.
Well, it's really why I put the Parajet videos on our Mako site as well, because I feel like a lot of the people who would love the adventure and the adrenaline of a jetboard would also love Parajetting. So that's kind of why I'm trying to bring some of the marketing together to kind of put the word out there that this is something. When you go down to the beach with your jetboard, I often take my Parajet and can take off on the beach and go and fly, and then I go and jetboard, and it's just adds a whole new experience to the game. So it's really worth looking at.
So you've been bringing a lot of products on the market. So I wanted to hear your opinion about electric boards as well, and efoils. What do you think how the industry is going to evolve next years?
So that's a really interesting question, because obviously the electric board is the future, you know. It's just that it's a challenge to get the weight down and the range, basically. So we've built 2 electric boards so far, and they're great. We made sure that in fact, they go even faster than our standard stock board, because they've got a really powerful electric motor, but they only have a runtime of about 10 minutes. And even then, they're a little bit heavier than our current jetboard. So that's when we put enough batteries in, and to get the real performance we want, they end up a little bit heavy. So I think what's happening in the industry is really interesting. It's the holy grail to have an electric, quiet, fast board with a long range and keep the weight down, so you don't need 2 people to carry it down to the water. That's a really key factor. You don't want to have a friend to come and, you know, hoist the board down to the seafront. So I think that there's a bit of a gap still, frankly, in getting the performance of a petrol engine board, to be comparable with an electric board. So we're going to release an electric board for sure, based on the development work we've done, but we're not going to do it in a hurry, and we're not going to do it so that it's lower performance speed-wise than our current board. The only area it will be lower performance on is on range. That's the only area where we won't be able to compete. It's simply that, and I think we'll find that across the industry, frankly. No one out there will have a board that can remotely compete on range compared with a petrol engine jetboard. But there is also the other factor that's questionable about it, is the fact one of the beauties of a jetboard, the kind of ones we're talking about here, petrol engine jetboard, is you can take them on an aeroplane easily anywhere in the world. And with an electric board, you can't carry batteries that are that big safely on an aeroplane. So that's also a limiting factor. All the adventures we've been on with jetboards, we couldn't have taken electric jetboards on those trips. So that's one question. Coming back to your question about hydrofoils, so we also developed an electric hydrofoil, and we also developed actually a jetboard with a kind of mouth at the bottom of the hydrofoil, which sucks it up through the jet drive and throws it out of the back of the board, and that worked quite well, but it was a little bit noisy. And I think part of the beauty of the hydrofoil is it's super quiet. So you know it's kind of, you've got to go with what you're flying with a hydrofoil. And with a jetboard, you're on the surface of the water, and it's a bit noisy as a result. So with a hydrofoil, you really want to gather the real purity of that flying experience. And I think we really want to look at doing an optional hydrofoil that fits on the base of our board. So rather than doing a dedicated hydrofoil, dedicating a standard jetboard to have a hydrofoil attachment. That's where we think we want to go with jetboarding, because we don't feel that the pure hydrofoil, it's a bit impractical to transport on its own, yeah? And they're also a little bit fiddly at the moment. So the industry currently saying there's some beautiful products out there, but to actually set them up, we've got all of the products, we're testing all of the different things that are available. But actually, what we find is a lot of them are a bit impractical to transport. Compared to a jetboard, you just throw in the bag, you undo the quick release FCS fins, and you chuck it in the back of the car and you go. Whereas a hydrofoil, you've got a lot of screws to undo, connectors, etc., etc. And we thought that was a bit impractical. So what we're developing is a quick release system, so that no tools are involved, something that's much more streamlined to essentially pack up, and then you can take it out of the water and either use the hydrofoil if you feel it's a rough conditions you want to use, or you don't use it and you use the jetboard on its own. So I think that's a really important design detail, to have the option within the product and have no tools, basically.
Sounds good, sounds good. So my final question is how the COVID is influencing your production and shipping. I know it's been really tough in UK lately. What's going on?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, look, one of the things that's lucky for us is we manufacture everything in-house. So that helps. However, even material supply sometimes, we've had materials that literally we take longer to get hold of than they should do. Also, just social distancing in the workspace. When one person gets, they suddenly come down with they've been in contact with someone with an infection, suddenly they can't come into work until they get tested. So that delays things again. It's definitely a challenging time, but it has also pushed us. I'd say there's, whilst there's negatives, there's also positives. We've been amazed by how much we've been able to achieve with less people, and people who sometimes aren't available to come into work. We still managed to get the product out of the door in good time. We've managed to keep up, on the whole, a good customer service. We've obviously tried our hardest to really maintain, all the things that we should be as a company. And it's been a positive outcome in many ways, because we've shown to the team, and not just in Mako, but in Parajet as well, what's possible with fewer staff members who are restricted as to where they can move. Actually still managed to, last year we produced nearly 700 Parajets with a smaller team, for example. And we're pumping out jetboards this month. We'll produce 20 jetboards this month. And that's a really good thing for 2 guys on the shop floor. And, it's encouraging. But that's trying to be positive about what is actually quite a difficult situation. You're right. It's not the easiest time to be trying to, grow a company.
True. All right, Gilo, I won't hold you longer. Thank you so much for this interview. I hope people learn something more about the Mako, and your positivity is very contagious. I hope more people will get to jetboarding and start.
Yeah, so do I. Mike, thank you so much for your time. That's really appreciated. Great.
Bye.